When I was 5 years old, I lived in a peaceful neighborhood where everything seemed safe, almost too safe. The houses were small but cozy, the streets were quiet, and the days stretched endlessly with sunshine and the laughter of children echoing from one end of the block to the other. Back then, life felt simple. We played outside every day. Hide and seek, tag, jump rope, just innocent fun, the kind that feels infinite when you're a child. I had 2 older brothers, and we'd race down the sidewalks until our lungs burned and our cheeks ached from smiling. It was on one of those carefree afternoons that I heard my mother's voice calling out from the porch. "Emily, stop playing and come here. We're going to visit the new neighbors." I slowed down, panting. My brothers kept playing, but I stopped. I didn't want to go. Even at that age, something about it felt wrong. I remember asking, "Why are we visiting them?" "They just moved in." "It's polite," she replied quickly. "We're going to welcome them." "Why do we have to make friends with people we don't even know?" She gave me a sharp look. "You ask too many questions." I wanted to argue, but her tone ended the conversation. I followed her reluctantly, trailing behind as we crossed the street to the house next door. It looked normal, but something about it made my stomach twist. The windows were too dark, the front door too quiet. The moment we stepped inside, I felt it. The air was heavy, still. It didn't smell like a home. It smelled like dust and something else I couldn't name. Something metallic. My hand instinctively reached for the fabric of my mother's dress. "Emily, stop that," she whispered. "Don't be rude." We were greeted by a tall woman with long black hair and an unsettling smile. Her teeth were perfectly white, but her eyes didn't match the smile. They looked dull, empty, like glass marbles. Her skin was pale and waxy, as if she hadn't been in the sun for years. She led us into the living room. Everything was neat, too neat, the kind of clean that doesn't feel lived in. The walls were covered in portraits of people I didn't recognize. Odd, old-fashioned paintings of children standing too straight, their eyes too wide. The woman sat down across from us and turned to me with a tilted head. "What's your name, sweet girl?" "Emily," I said quietly. She smiled again, too wide. "Emily, my children are upstairs. Why don't you go play with them?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to go. I glanced up at my mom, silently pleading. But she just nodded, encouraging me. "Go on. Don't be shy." I stood slowly and walked toward the staircase. The house was silent, except for the faint ticking of an old grandfather clock somewhere deep inside. As I climbed the stairs, each step creaked beneath my feet. My heart pounded louder with each one. At the top of the stairs, a hallway stretched out in front of me. There were several doors, all closed, except one. A black door stood slightly ajar, and from inside came a low, rasping sound. It wasn't music. It wasn't a voice. It was breathing, labored, uneven breathing. I should have turned back. But I was curious. I approached the door and slowly pushed it open. The room was dark, freezing. The curtains were drawn, and the air smelled like damp concrete. At first, I thought the room was empty. But then my eyes adjusted. A man was standing in the far corner, or something that looked like a man. He was enormous. His head nearly brushed the ceiling. His limbs were long and rigid, his posture unnatural. His back was to me, and for a moment, I thought maybe he hadn't noticed me. But then he turned. His face was wrong. Not deformed, just wrong. The features didn't sit quite right. His eyes were completely black. No whites, just endless voids. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. He took one step toward me, then another. Who are you? Who are you? I whispered. He stopped and tilted his head. "I am your death," he said, voice hollow and echoing, as if it came from beneath the floor. My knees went weak. "Why?" "I didn't do anything." He didn't reply. He just stood there. Then, without warning, he vanished. Like smoke. I turned and ran. I don't remember how I made it down the stairs. My legs moved on instinct. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. When I reached the living room, my mom looked at me in surprise. "Emily, what's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I looked at the woman. She was still smiling. But this time it wasn't friendly. It was mocking. She knew. She knew what I'd seen. We left soon after. My mother said goodbye politely and apologized for my behavior. I stayed silent the whole way home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. The way he looked at me, the way his voice echoed. Around midnight, I must have drifted off. And the dream came. I was back in the same room. The air was cold. He stood in front of me again. But this time he was closer. "You came into my space," he said. "You weren't supposed to." "I'm sorry," I cried. "I didn't mean to." He leaned in, his face inches from mine. "Now you belong to me." I woke up screaming. My mom rushed in, confused, trying to calm me down. I told her I had a nightmare. She kissed my forehead and told me to go back to sleep. But I couldn't. I sat up the rest of the night, shivering. The next morning, I had a bruise on my shoulder. A large one, purple and ugly. My mom thought I must have bumped into something during the night, but I didn't. Over the next few weeks, more bruises appeared. Scratches, even a burn on my forearm. My parents became worried. They took me to doctors, therapists. Everyone said the same thing: sleepwalking, stress, maybe even self-inflicted. But I knew the truth. I stopped sleeping. I tried to stay awake for days, but eventually sleep always won. And every time I slept, I went back to that room. The dreams became more intense. Sometimes I'd wake up with dirt on my feet or with the sheets torn. Once I found my bedroom window open, even though it was locked before I went to bed. One night, I dreamed that I was buried alive. I woke up gasping, clutching my chest, feeling the weight of dirt on top of me. There were scratch marks on the inside of my arms, like I'd been trying to claw my way out of something. Eventually, it stopped, or at least I thought it had. Years passed. I grew older. I moved away, went to college, got a job in another city. The dreams faded slowly. I almost convinced myself it had all been a series of childhood delusions. Until a week ago, I was back in my hometown visiting my parents. I took a walk in the evening, just like I used to. As I passed my old house, I looked over at the neighbors. It was abandoned, boarded up, windows shattered, roof sagging. I asked my mom about it later. She told me that no one had ever lived there after the family we visited. They moved out a few days after our visit. No forwarding address, no moving truck, just gone. I couldn't sleep that night. And then the dream came back. The man stood in front of me again, closer than ever before. "You thought I forgot," he said. "You never closed the door." When I woke up, I was lying on the floor of my childhood bedroom. My feet were dirty. My arm was bleeding. And this morning I found something even worse. A drawing, folded and placed on my kitchen counter. A child's drawing. My drawing, one I hadn't seen since I was 5 years old. It showed a little girl standing in front of a black door, and behind her, a tall, dark figure with no face. I live alone, and I never brought that drawing with me. Somehow I think he did.